Have you ever finished a meal and thought I'm eating healthy? So why do I still feel tired, swollen, or heavy? What if I told you that some of the foods you trust the most are quietly damaging your kidneys right now, without pain, without warning, and without giving you a second chance to notice? I'm Dr. Johnny, and this is something most people are never told until it's almost too late. Your kidneys don't scream when they're in trouble. They don't send sharp pain. They don't wake you up at night. Instead, they slowly lose strength with every wrong protein choice, every salty bite, every harmless meal you've eaten for years thinking it was safe. And here's the terrifying truth: by the time creatinine rises, by the time your doctor looks concerned, half of the damage may already be done. No dramatic symptoms, no clear warning signs, just silent strain minute by minute, meal by meal. But this isn't a video about fear alone. Because if you understand which proteins help your kidneys rest and recover, and which ones are secretly pushing them toward failure, you can still change the outcome starting today. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the proteins that can protect your kidneys, stabilize creatinine, and support filtration as you age, and the common everyday proteins that are quietly destroying kidney function in millions of people across America. Stay with me until the end, because one of the most dangerous foods for your kidneys is something almost everyone eats regularly, and once you recognize it, you'll never look at your plate the same way again. Tofu may look simple, even boring, but for your kidneys, it can feel like finally being allowed to rest. I've met many people over 50 who tell me the same story: I eat clean. I avoid sugar. I even cut back on meat. So why are my kidney numbers still getting worse? What most of them don't realize is that their kidneys aren't asking for less food. They're asking for a different kind of protein. Tofu belongs to a group of plant-based proteins that place far less stress on the kidneys during filtration. Unlike heavy animal proteins, which generate large amounts of nitrogen waste, tofu provides protein in a form that's easier for aging kidneys to process. Its most powerful compounds, called isoflavones, work as natural anti-inflammatory agents. They help calm the tiny filtering structures inside your kidneys, known as renal tubules, which are often inflamed or overworked long before symptoms appear. This isn't theory. Clinical data supports it. In studies following patients with early to moderate kidney strain, replacing part of animal protein with tofu was linked to more stable creatinine levels and a slower decline in eGFR. One large observational study found that people who regularly consume moderate portions of tofu had up to a 20% lower risk of worsening kidney markers compared to those relying heavily on red or processed meats. That difference may not sound dramatic at first, but over years it can mean the difference between stability and progression. However, here's where many people unknowingly cancel out the benefits. Tofu only protects your kidneys when it's prepared correctly. Frying it, soaking it in salty sauces, or pairing it with processed seasonings turns a kidney-friendly food into another burden. Your kidneys don't care that it's tofu. They respond to sodium additives and overall workload. Steamed, lightly boiled, or gently cooked tofu allows your kidneys to filter with less effort and less inflammation. For most adults, about 100 to 150 grams per meal a few times per week is enough. This isn't about eating more protein. It's about choosing protein that gives your kidneys a chance to recover instead of forcing them to struggle. But knowing this alone still isn't enough, because there's another protein many people think is harmless, yet it places a completely different kind of pressure on your kidneys, and that's where the next part becomes truly eye-opening. If tofu teaches your kidneys how to breathe again, lentils teach them how to circulate without strain. I often meet people who say, "I don't eat much meat anymore, but my kidney numbers still won't budge." When we look closer, the issue isn't how much protein they've removed, it's what they failed to replace it with. And that's where lentils quietly change the game. Lentils belong to a rare group of plant proteins that don't just feed the body, they improve blood flow to the kidneys. Their standout nutrients, folate and arginine, help reduce homocysteine, a compound that damages blood vessels and increases filtration pressure. When blood moves more smoothly through the kidneys, those tiny filters don't have to fight against resistance. Less pressure means less damage day after day. I remember one patient in his early 60s who swapped 2 red meat dinners per week for simple lentil soups. No supplements, no extreme diet. 8 weeks later, his labs showed something subtle but powerful: creatinine stabilized and eGFR stopped declining. He told me I didn't feel dramatic changes overnight, but I stopped feeling heavy after meals. That feeling matters because your kidneys feel it too. Science supports this pattern. Long-term dietary studies following older adults show that regular lentil consumption is associated with lower homocysteine levels and improved kidney filtration markers. In one large observational cohort, people who consumed legumes like lentils consistently had up to a 15% improvement in vascular-related kidney indicators compared to diets centered around animal protein. That's not coincidence, that's circulation. But preparation matters more than most people realize. Lentils need to be soaked briefly and cooked gently. Adding a splash of vinegar at the end improves mineral absorption without stressing digestion. And portion control is key. About 100 to 150 grams per meal a few times a week is enough to support kidney health without overwhelming it. This isn't a superfood fix. It's a steady, intelligent replacement that removes pressure where it hurts most. Here's the bigger picture. Lentils don't work because they're trendy. They work because they change the workload your kidneys face after every meal. And once circulation improves, your kidneys finally get a break they haven't had in years. But understanding lentils still isn't enough because there's another protein many people avoid out of fear, yet it may be one of the cleanest, safest options for aging kidneys. And that's where the next part becomes impossible to ignore. After tofu and lentils teach your kidneys to breathe and circulate more easily, egg whites step in with something even more powerful: purity. I've heard countless people say, I avoid eggs because of cholesterol, not realizing that the part they fear most isn't even in the egg white. And by avoiding it, they're often missing one of the safest proteins their kidneys could ask for. Egg whites provide high-quality protein with almost no baggage, no cholesterol, very little sodium, and most importantly, far less waste for the kidneys to filter. The key protein inside egg whites is albumin, and it plays a critical role in maintaining fluid balance in the blood. When albumin levels are stable, your kidneys don't have to work overtime trying to filter excess protein leaking into the urine, a common problem in early kidney decline. I once spoke with a woman in her late 50s who struggled with morning swelling and fatigue. She thought it was just aging. When she replaced her usual processed breakfast with 2 steamed egg whites and soft vegetables, something changed quietly. Within weeks, her labs showed less protein in the urine and more stable kidney markers. She didn't feel cured, but she felt lighter, and her kidneys reflected that shift. Research supports this approach. Large population studies following adults over 50 have found that diets including egg whites as a primary protein source are associated with lower kidney stress and more stable eGFR trends, especially when compared to diets heavy in red or processed meats. In controlled dietary observations, individuals consuming egg whites several times per week showed improvements in protein metabolism without increases in creatinine. Again, this isn't magic, it's efficiency. But here's the mistake many people make. Egg whites only stay kidney-friendly when they're prepared gently. Frying them in butter, pairing them with salty meats, or drowning them in sauces turns a clean protein into a metabolic burden. Steaming or lightly cooking egg whites preserves albumin structure and avoids adding unnecessary fat and sodium, 2 things aging kidneys struggle with most. For most adults, 2 to 3 egg whites per meal, 2 to 3 times per week is enough to support muscle and energy without overwhelming filtration. It's a simple adjustment, but one that gives your kidneys a break right at the start of the day. But even the cleanest protein can become harmful if the portion or preparation is wrong, and that's where the next protein, often praised but frequently misused, becomes a turning point you can't afford to miss. Lean chicken is one of the most misunderstood proteins when it comes to kidney health. I hear this all the time: chicken is healthy, so I eat it every day. And that's exactly where the problem begins. Chicken itself isn't the enemy. The danger lies in how much you eat, how often, and how it's prepared. I once worked with a man in his early 60s who believed he was protecting his kidneys by cutting out red meat entirely. Instead, he replaced it with large portions of chicken at nearly every meal. On paper, it looked like a smart choice, but his creatinine kept climbing. What his kidneys were experiencing wasn't relief, it was constant protein overload. Even clean protein creates nitrogen waste, and when the kidneys never get a break, filtration pressure slowly builds. Lean chicken does have advantages. It's easier to digest than red meat and contains L-carnitine, a compound that helps reduce nitrogen waste and supports energy metabolism. Studies comparing protein sources consistently show that people who replace red meat with lean poultry tend to maintain more stable kidney filtration over time. In long-term observations, individuals eating moderate portions of lean chicken several times per week had significantly slower eGFR decline than those relying on beef or processed meats. That's real progress, but only when moderation is respected. Preparation is where everything changes. Grilling with heavy marinades, frying in oil, or seasoning aggressively with salt turns lean chicken into a kidney stress test. Sodium raises blood pressure. Excess fat slows metabolism. Suddenly, a healthy meal forces your kidneys to work harder than before. Gentle cooking methods, boiling, stewing, baking with minimal seasoning, keep the protein clean and the workload manageable. For most adults, especially over 50, about 120 to 150 grams per meal. No more than 3 times per week is a safe range. Combine it with vegetables or plant proteins, not more animal protein. This balance gives your kidneys time to recover between meals instead of pushing them nonstop. Here's the hard truth: lean chicken can either support kidney health or quietly accelerate decline depending on your habits. The difference isn't dramatic, it's subtle, repeated, and cumulative. But even when protein quality and portions are controlled, there's another category of foods that overwhelms the kidneys far faster than most people realize, and it usually shows up first thing in the morning. Bacon feels harmless because it's familiar. It smells good, it tastes comforting, and for many people it's been part of breakfast for decades. I've had patients look at me in disbelief when I say this. Your kidneys don't struggle because of one big mistake. They struggle because of small habits you repeat every morning. And bacon is one of the most common. The problem isn't just fat or calories. Smoked meats are loaded with sodium and nitrates, a combination that hits the kidneys from 2 directions at once. Sodium raises blood pressure and increases filtration pressure inside the kidneys. Nitrates and nitrites trigger oxidative stress, damaging the delicate nephron structures responsible for cleaning your blood. Your kidneys don't get inflamed all at once. They get worn down slice by slice. I remember a man in his late 50s who ate bacon 3 to 4 mornings a week. He didn't overeat. He exercised. His labs, however, told a different story. Creatinine was slowly rising, and eGFR was drifting down year after year. When he removed smoked meats from his routine, nothing dramatic happened overnight. But within months, his kidney markers stopped getting worse. That pause alone was a victory. Research backs this pattern. Large dietary studies consistently show that people who consume processed meats regularly have a significantly higher risk of chronic kidney disease, with some data linking frequent bacon consumption to over a 30% increase in CKD risk compared to those who avoid it. Processed meat protein is harder to digest, produces more waste, and forces the kidneys to work overtime just to keep up. If giving up bacon completely feels impossible, harm reduction matters. Soaking slices briefly in water before cooking can lower surface sodium. Cooking at lower temperatures without added salt reduces additional stress. Pairing it with vegetables instead of refined carbs helps slightly, but let's be honest. These are compromises, not solutions. The safest move for your kidneys is replacement, not moderation. Egg whites, tofu, or lentils in the morning give your kidneys fuel without forcing them into a daily battle. Because when smoked meats become routine, kidney damage doesn't announce itself, it accumulates. But bacon isn't the only innocent-looking food overwhelming your kidneys. There's another one people snack on without hesitation, and its impact is even more deceptive. Hard cheese is deceptive because it looks harmless in small amounts. A thin slice here, a cube there. Many people say I barely eat cheese, but your kidneys don't measure habits by how big the portion looks, they measure how concentrated the load is. And hard cheese delivers a dense hit of sodium and animal protein in a very small space. I once spoke with a woman in her early 60s who snacked on hard cheese every afternoon, believing it was a smart low-carb choice. She wasn't overeating, but her blood pressure stayed stubbornly high, and her kidney labs slowly drifted in the wrong direction. When we reviewed her diet, the issue wasn't calories, it was chronic sodium pressure day after day coming from foods she never suspected. Hard cheese is particularly challenging for aging kidneys because of its high salt concentration. Sodium increases fluid retention, and raises pressure inside the glomeruli, the tiny filters responsible for cleaning your blood. Over time, that pressure forces the kidneys to work harder just to maintain balance. Add to that a dense animal-based protein that produces more nitrogen waste, and you have a perfect recipe for gradual kidney strain. The science is clear on this pattern. Population studies following older adults show that diets high in salted aged cheeses are associated with higher creatinine levels and faster declines in kidney filtration, especially in people over 50. In one large analysis, individuals consuming more than modest amounts of hard cheese daily showed a marked increase in kidney stress markers compared to those choosing low-sodium dairy or plant-based alternatives. Again, this damage doesn't happen overnight, it accumulates quietly. That doesn't mean cheese must disappear forever, but it does mean the type and portion matter deeply. Fresh, low-sodium cheeses place far less strain on the kidneys. Using small amounts as a garnish instead of a snack changes the equation. Pairing cheese with vegetables and adequate hydration helps reduce the load, but only to a point. Here's the key takeaway. Hard cheese doesn't feel dangerous because it's familiar and compact. But for your kidneys, it's like adding weight to an already stressed system, one bite at a time. Awareness alone can slow the damage, and smart substitutions can change the trajectory. And yet there's one protein source that may be even more dangerous, not because it's rich or indulgent, but because it's cheap, convenient, and easy to eat without limits. And that's where the next part becomes truly alarming. Canned sausages don't feel dangerous. They're cheap, fast, and always there when you're tired or busy. That's exactly why they're so harmful. I've heard people say it's just a quick meal without realizing that convenience is often the most expensive thing your kidneys ever pay for. What makes canned sausages especially destructive isn't just one factor, it's the combination. Low-quality processed protein, extremely high sodium added phosphates, and chemical preservatives all arrive at your kidneys at the same time. Sodium spikes blood pressure and filtration pressure. Phosphates disrupt mineral balance and accelerate kidney tissue damage. Preservatives increase oxidative stress. Your kidneys aren't built to handle this mixture repeatedly, especially as you age. I once reviewed labs for a man in his late 50s who relied on canned sausages several times a week. He wasn't overeating and he wasn't obese, yet his creatinine rose steadily and his eGFR declined faster than expected. When he replaced those meals with simple alternatives, egg whites, lentils, or lean chicken, his kidney decline slowed noticeably within months. The damage didn't reverse overnight, but the trajectory changed, and that change matters. Scientific data strongly supports this pattern. Studies published in renal nutrition journals show that frequent consumption of processed meats like canned sausages is associated with a significantly higher risk of chronic kidney disease, with some reports linking regular intake to nearly a 30% increase in CKD risk. Processed proteins produce more waste demand, more filtration, and expose kidneys to additives they struggle to clear efficiently. If quitting entirely feels difficult, harm reduction still helps. Boiling sausages briefly before cooking can reduce surface sodium. Limiting intake to rare occasions rather than routine meals lowers cumulative stress. But the truth is hard to ignore. The safest choice for your kidneys is replacement, not moderation. Fresh proteins give your kidneys a chance to recover. Processed ones never do. Here's the uncomfortable reality. Kidney failure rarely begins with a dramatic event. It begins with habits that feel harmless because they're familiar and easy. And canned sausages fit that pattern perfectly quietly, pushing the kidneys closer to a line you don't want to cross. And now comes the most important question of all. After hearing everything you've learned, will your next meal protect your kidneys or slowly take something from you that medicine can never fully give back? Before we end, I want you to remember one important thing. If you're listening to this right now, it means you still care about your health, and that already puts you ahead of where many people realize the problem too late. Kidney damage doesn't happen overnight, and protecting your kidneys doesn't require extreme diets or fear-driven choices. It starts with awareness, consistency, and small decisions made every single day. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to give up everything you enjoy. What truly matters is choosing foods that reduce strain, limiting what silently causes damage, and giving your kidneys the respect they deserve, especially as we age. If this video helped you understand your kidneys a little better, please save it. Not just for today, but for the day you need a reminder before making a familiar food choice. And if you care about receiving the latest science-based medical knowledge to protect your kidneys, naturally subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. Every new video is created to help you stay informed, stay independent, and stay ahead of silent disease. There is hope. Kidneys respond when you give them the right conditions. With the right nutrition, smarter habits, and timely knowledge, you can slow decline, protect function, and support your health for years to come. Thank you for spending this time with me. Take care of your kidneys because they quietly take care of you every single day.